In today's video, I'm just going to give you a peek behind the scenes in the kitchen of a real food kitchen with our large family of 8. I have a ton of peaches that I got and I want to buy more, but I need to process these. So I'm starting off with the Pomona's Pectin. This is a new cookbook for me, but Pomona's Pectin, you can use less sugar when canning. So I am trying out different jams and jellies this year to find recipes that I like. And the first one I'm trying is a maple vanilla peach jam, and it turned out wonderful. But I'm also going ahead, since I'm already peeling and cutting these up, I am getting some ready to put in the freezer for the freeze dryer. Also take about 32 hours or so in the freeze dryer when I pre-freeze them overnight. Next up is blueberry lemon muffins. With kids, it's summer, they run around and stuff. They're way more hungry in the summer, so having snacks on hand or quick breakfast is the way to go. And another snack that I am making is, we call them chocolate balls in my house, but it's oatmeal, coconut, peanut butter, honey, chocolate chips, and I'm also adding this time almond pulp for making some almond milk. We have been switching to almond and cashew milk, making at home because I buy them in bulk, nuts in bulk from Azure Standard. And I'm always having a helper or two trying to help in the kitchen. So she is helping stir, and of course, you'll see her in a second sneak a couple of chocolate chips when I'm not looking. And those just get rolled out and put in the freezer in a gallon bag. Next up is the almond milk that I'm making on this day. Depending on what I use, I do it a few times a week. We add it to our oatmeal, or in baking, instead of regular milk, we use cashew or almond milk, and it pretty much is a 1-to-1 ratio. Hasn't been much problem with that. We've had some cuties and stuff, so I'm saving the peels and adding them to this jar with vinegar, and then I'll let it sit in my on the shelf for about 4 weeks, and it will give our homemade cleaner a little.
Always talking about how getting up and getting your stuff done first thing in the morning. So this is what I'm starting to do, along with getting ready for the next day at night. But I've been having beef fat in the crock pot for about a day and a half. So I rendered that, trying to get filled jars. I have cashew milk going, lots of dishes, and I have beans that I am wanting to freeze dry, so I have to cook them up in batches in the Instant Pot so I can get them in the freezer so I can start that batch tomorrow morning after breakfast. And I'll hopefully have a video on it's super simple to freeze dry beans. And
next up is getting meat from the freezer. In the summer, I don't always have a strict menu plan, just more of having meat available to decide what we want to cook, and it is a huge helper when it comes to mealtime. And we live within the city limits, so we do not have chickens and fresh eggs, so we haven't been using a lot, but in the summer we like fresh salads, which all of my kids eat, and also egg salads. So I'm making some bulk cooked eggs. And next up, I am making another batch of muffins, and I have the recipe here on my channel. It's my Grandma Dee's recipe. It's an A to Z recipe, which means you can do apples or blueberries or zucchini. You can add whatever you want in it as long as the quantity is about the same. And I do make a couple changes, and I think I mentioned in that video also, instead of butter, I use coconut oil like you just saw me, and here I'm showing you I use flax eggs instead of real eggs. It's 1 tablespoon of flax to 3 tablespoons of water, and let it sit there for just a couple minutes till it gets a little thicker. And I did end up adding my almond pulp in there. I don't want that to go to waste, and since I don't have chickens to feed, I'm trying to find ways to use it. I'm also using fresh milled flour. My husband got me a grain mill for Mother's Day, so most of my recipes I'm finding are pretty, I can exchange them 1-to-1 flour, so that's what I'm doing. I just bulk grind a bunch, and I keep that jug in the refrigerator for the week or a couple days worth of stuff, so I don't always have to fresh ground it. And here I also added sourdough. I did not measure that out, but I know from experience it comes out just fine. And since I'm making a berry, I'm adding cinnamon and a little bit of cardamom. I'm using the last of my blueberries from last year. I was trying to use them up before we get a big 50 pounds here soon. And so it turned into a berry muffin mix with raspberries and blueberries, and I saw that I used a lemon extract. And I'm always having a helper in the kitchen. It is a thick batter when you add this sourdough to it, but as it cooks, it is moist with everything in there. It turns moist and it actually is a little cake-like almost. And I split this up. It was a double batch, but I split this up between a 9 by 13 to make bars, and I did have enough to have some muffins. And you'll see I didn't have enough blueberries, so I got my raspberries out. And then I had trouble because the one complaint from the Azure from the raspberry pieces, it just sticks into a block. So it wasn't that big of a deal. I got the meat pounder out and pounded out enough that I needed, but no big deal. It just makes it a little bit more work when you want some fresh raspberries. And like I said, I'm using, since this is a thicker batter, I do as much as I can, and I dip my fingers in water actually to spread it out. But like I said, it will come out cake-like and perfect. So it does tend to be a little thicker when you use sourdough in a recipe, but it all worked out just. So I'm getting my coffee ready. After dinner, I canned some peach jam. I have still doesn't feel like I have made a dent in these peaches, but I do have a batch in the freeze dryer, and I'll get another batch tomorrow, and hopefully my husband will help me to get some of these peaches in the freezer for freeze drying another batch, or just for come winter when we want to do smoothies or mock ice cream. I know a lot of people promote getting up at 5 a.m. before their kids and having time. And unfortunately, my husband is that way. But with a 1-year-old that still wakes up on top of 5 other kids, I do my best work kind of at night before I go to bed. So when I wake up, I don't have a laundry list of things to do. But that also means I'm spending my evenings prepping for tomorrow. I get my coffee ready. I figure out what's for breakfast. If I can prep breakfast, that's a bonus. But I find that if I take the 15 or 20 minutes to clean up the kitchen, to get my stuff ready for the morning, I can jump into my day and not already feel behind.